The massive space station floated in the darkness between stars. It was beautiful, made of crystal and metal that seemed to glow with its own light. This was the home of the Galactic Council, where beings from 47 different worlds came, together to talk and make decisions about the galaxy. Inside the great meeting hall, creatures of all shapes and sizes were gathering. Some had wings that sparkled like glass. Others had many arms or legs. Some floated in the air, while others needed special suits to breathe. They were all waiting for the meeting to begin. Ambassador Crickstal sat in her assigned spot, her see-through wings folded behind her back. She was nervous today, though she tried not to show it. The Zanari people were known for being calm, but today was different. A new species was coming to ask to join the council. They called themselves humans. She had read the reports about them. They came from a planet called Earth, far away in a distant part of the galaxy. The reports said they had only learned how to travel faster than light about 30 years ago. That was like yesterday for most species in the council. Some of them had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Near her, Counselor Vexmar made a sound of disgust. He was a Thraxian, with 4 strong arms and a hard shell covering his body like armor. The Thraxians were one of the most powerful species in the council, and Vexmar didn't like the idea of letting young species join. "Another group of primitives," he said loudly enough for others to hear. "They probably don't even have proper weapons. They'll just ask us for technology and protection, like all the other young races." Other council members murmured among themselves. Some agreed with Vexmar, while others thought every species deserved a chance. That was the way of the council. They talked, they argued, but in the end, they voted. High Chancellor Loomis floated to the center of the room. She was an Etherian, a being made of pure energy that looked like living light. Her voice was soft, but everyone could hear it clearly in their minds. "Please, everyone, take your places," she said. "The human delegation has contacted us. Their ships will arrive within the hour." Everyone moved to their spots. The Great Hall had windows that looked out into space, where they would be able to see the human ships when they arrived. Most delegations came in beautiful ships, painted and polished to make a good impression. It was important to look successful when asking to join the council. Far away from the station, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Defiance. The bridge was the control room of the ship, where the captain and crew guided it through space. But this bridge didn't look like it should. There were burn marks on the walls. Some of the screens were cracked but still working. Dark stains covered parts of the floor. Jake was a tall man with short brown hair that had gone gray at the edges in just the last week. His blue eyes were tired but alert as he looked at the information on the screens in front of him. Behind his ship, 36 other human ships followed. They were all that was left. "Captain, we're getting close to the council station," said Lieutenant Amy Parker. She was young, maybe 25, with red hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Her left arm was in a sling, but she still worked at her station with her right hand. "They're sending us instructions on where to dock our ships." Jake nodded slowly. "Tell all our ships to follow the instructions exactly. We don't want to seem threatening." He paused, then added, "Everyone should put on their best uniforms. We need to look professional." "What about the ships, sir?" asked another crew member, a man named Chris Baker. "Should we try to clean them? Remove the blood and damage marks?" Jake turned to look out the main window. He could see the other human ships nearby. They all looked terrible. The metal hulls were torn open in places, fixed with whatever materials they could find. Weapons had left black burn marks everywhere. Some ships had alien writing burned into their sides. And yes, there was blood. Not human blood, but the green and purple blood of their enemies. "No," Jake said firmly. "We go in as we are. The council needs to see the truth." He remembered how different everything had been just 2 weeks ago. They had left Earth with 52 ships, all of them clean and shining. The ships had carried families, scientists, teachers, and artists. They brought gifts from Earth, music, paintings, sculptures, even foods and wines to share. They were supposed to be ambassadors of peace, showing the galaxy that humans were ready to join the community of worlds. But then they had met the Kraxan. Jake pushed the memory away. There would be time to tell that story soon enough. "Sir," Amy said, "I'm picking up communications from the council station. They can see us now." Back in the council chamber, gasps filled the room as the human ships came into view. These were not the beautiful diplomatic vessels they were used to seeing. These ships looked like they had been through hell. "By the ancient void," whispered Ambassador Zelen of the Etherian Collective. She was like the High Chancellor, a being of energy, but younger and less bright. "What happened to them?" The human ships moved slowly toward the station. The biggest one, the one called Defiance, looked the worst. Huge tears in its metal skin had been roughly patched with different colored metals. Strange symbols were burned into its side, symbols that some of the council members recognized with shock. "Those are Kraxan battle marks," said a small creature with large eyes. "That writing? It says Deathbringers in Kraxan language." The room fell silent. Everyone knew about the Kraxan. They were pirates, raiders who attacked ships in the outer regions of space. They took prisoners to sell as slaves. They were cruel and powerful, with a fleet of hundreds of warships. Most species paid them to stay away or simply avoided the areas where they hunted. "How are these humans still alive?" someone asked quietly. High Chancellor Loomis floated closer to the windows, her energy form pulsing with concern. In her 1,000 years of life, she had seen many things, but ships that bore Kraxan battle marks usually didn't survive to tell about it. As the human ships docked with the station, the council members could see more details. One ship had what looked like the front of a Kraxan fighter stuck in its side, like a knife in a wound. Another was missing entire sections with emergency force fields keeping the air inside. All of them were covered in scars. "They're docking now," announced the station commander through the communication system. "The human delegation is preparing to board." The council members straightened in their seats. Whatever had happened to these humans, they were about to find out. The great doors of the chamber began to open slowly. Through those doors would walk the representatives of humanity. But they would not be what anyone expected. They would not be the clean, proud diplomats that usually came before the council. They would be something else entirely. They would be survivors of something terrible, and they would have a story that would change how the galaxy saw humanity forever. The great doors opened with a soft hiss. The council members leaned forward in their seats, eager to see these humans who had somehow survived an encounter with the Kraxan. What walked through those doors made them all freeze in surprise. 21. Humans entered the chamber in a formal line. They wore dark blue uniforms that were clean and pressed, but that was where the normality ended. Their leader, a woman with black hair and Asian features, had a white bandage wrapped around her neck. Blood had soaked through in spots, creating small red flowers on the white cloth. She walked with perfect posture despite what must have been pain. Behind her came others, each showing signs of recent battle. A tall black man had a metal prosthetic where his right arm should have been. The metal was clearly a rush job, functional but not pretty. A blonde woman limped slightly, favoring her left leg. A young man, barely out of his teens, had burns covering half his face. They all walked with their heads high, their eyes forward. The human delegation stopped in the center of the chamber. The woman in front raised her hand to her forehead in what looked like a military salute, then lowered it. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she said, her voice strong and clear despite her injury. "I am Admiral Lisa Chen of the United Earth Ship Defiance. With me are the surviving senior officers of the Earth Diplomatic Fleet. We come before you seeking membership in your great alliance." High Chancellor Loomis floated forward slightly. Her energy form shifted colors, showing her concern. "Admiral Chen, we welcome you to this chamber, but we must ask, what happened to your fleet? Your ships show signs of severe battle damage." Lisa's face remained calm. "We were attacked, High Chancellor. On our journey here, we encountered a hostile force that demanded our surrender." Counselor Vexamar couldn't hold back any longer. His forearms spread wide in a gesture of disbelief. "You were attacked? By whom? And how did you survive? Your ships look like they should be scrap metal, not flying through space." "The Kraxan hegemony," Lisa said simply. The chamber erupted in whispers and gasps. Several smaller species actually moved back in their seats, as if the humans might be dangerous just from having fought the Kraxen. "Impossible," said Ambassador Threen of the Morvac Federation. He was a tall, thin creature with scales that changed color with his emotions. Right now they were shifting between purple and orange, confusion and fear. The Kraxen travel in fleets of hundreds. No diplomatic convoy could survive such an encounter. The man with the prosthetic arm stepped forward. "I am Commander Ryan Cooper, former captain of the UES Hope's Dream. With respect, Ambassador, we did more than survive. We won." This time the chamber fell completely silent. Even the constant hum of the station's life support seemed to pause. "Won?" Vexmar's voice was full of disbelief. "You're telling us that a diplomatic fleet defeated a Kraxen war party?" "Not a war party," Lisa corrected. "A full slave fleet. 300 ships under the command of Admiral Graxtor the Rendered." Several council members made sounds of recognition. Graxtor was infamous, known throughout the Outer Territories as one of the most successful and cruel of the Kraxen slavers. He had been taking ships and selling their crews for over 50 years. "Perhaps," High Chancellor Loomis said carefully, "you should tell us exactly what happened." Lisa nodded and touched a device on her wrist. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber, showing the human fleet as it had been. The image made several council members gasp again, but for a different reason this time. The original fleet had been beautiful. 52 ships of various sizes, their hulls painted with the blue and green of Earth's oceans and continents. Some had artwork on their sides, pictures of Earth animals, landscapes, and symbols of human culture. One ship even had children's drawings painted on its hull, clearly done by young hands. "We left Earth 43 days ago," Lisa began. "Our fleet carried over 20,000 souls, not just diplomats and crew, but families. We brought scientists to share our knowledge, teachers to learn from you, artists to share our culture. We brought our children to show that we came in good faith, trusting the galaxy with our future." The image changed, showing the fleet's route through space. "We were careful to follow all published travel advisories. We stayed in recognized shipping lanes. We transmitted standard peaceful intentions on all frequencies. Then in the Nexus void they found us." The hologram shifted to show the human fleet surrounded. Kraxen ships appeared like a swarm of metal predators, each one bristling with weapons. The Kraxen vessels were built for fear, sharp angles, dark, metal, and prominent weapon systems. The largest, Graxtor's flagship, was 3 times the size of the biggest human ship. "They came out of hyperspace all around us," Ryan Cooper said, taking over the narrative. 312 vessels in total. Before we could even ask their intentions, they transmitted their demands. The chamber's speakers came to life with a harsh, grating voice speaking in the common trade language. "Unknown vessels, you are now property of the Kraxen hegemony. Surrender immediately. Your crew will be evaluated for sale. Those deemed worthless will be spaced. Resistance will result in the slow death of your younglings while your adults watch. You have 2 minutes to comply." Several of the council members shuddered. This was standard Kraxen practice. Brutal, direct, and effective. Most species surrendered immediately rather than risk torture. "What did you do?" asked Ambassador Crixtal, her wings trembling slightly. Lisa's expression hardened. "We asked for time to discuss their terms. While our diplomats talked to them, trying to explain that we were on a peaceful mission to the Council, every human ship began to prepare." "Prepare?" Vexmar asked. "Your ships were diplomatic vessels. What weapons could you possibly have had?" A younger human, a woman with short brown hair and intense green eyes, spoke up. "I'm Captain Janet Rodriguez. I commanded the science vessel UES Darwin. You're right, Counselor. We didn't have military weapons. We had mining lasers for asteroid samples. We had plasma cutters for hull repairs. We had chemical stores for terraforming. Experiments." She paused, meeting the eyes of various council members. "But humans have a saying, anything is a weapon if you're creative enough. And we're a very creative species when our children are threatened." The hologram changed again, showing the interior of human ships. The council watched as humans of all ages worked with desperate efficiency. Scientists rewired mining equipment into weapons. Engineers reinforced hull plating with cargo containers. In one particularly striking image, a group of what looked like school teachers were converting educational chemistry sets into explosives. The Kraxen gave us 2 minutes, Lisa continued. We used every second. When time ran out, we gave them our answer. The speakers activated again, this time with Lisa's own voice, cold and steady. Kraxen Fleet, this is Admiral Chen of Earth. We are a peaceful species, but we have a long history with those who would make slaves of others. Our ancestors fought and died to end slavery on our world. We carry their memory in our blood. You want our children? Come and take them. Ambassador Zellen's energy form flickered with shock. You refused them? Directly. Do you understand what the Kraxen do to those who resist? We understood perfectly, Lisa said quietly. That's why we refused. Better to die free than live as slaves, but we had no intention of dying alone. The hologram began to show the battle, though it was clear the humans had edited it to be less graphic for the council. Even so, what it showed was shocking. The Kraxen attacked immediately, Ryan narrated. Their first wave was meant to disable our engines and weapons. They wanted us alive after all. Slaves are worth more than corpses. The council watched as the smaller human ships suddenly scattered in seemingly random directions. But there was nothing random about it. We call it the swarm protocol, Janet explained. Every ship becomes independent. Every human becomes a soldier. No central command to destroy, no single point of failure. Just 20,000 humans who would rather die than see their children in chains. The battle in the hologram was chaos, but a strange kind of organized chaos. Human ships that seemed to be fleeing suddenly turned and rammed into Kraxen vessels. Small transport ships released clouds of modified terraforming chemicals that ate through Kraxen hulls. The science vessel Darwin fired its mining lasers at point-blank range, cutting Kraxen ships in half. They weren't ready for us, Lisa said simply. The Kraxen are used to fighting merchants and explorers. They're used to species that surrender, to save themselves. They weren't ready for a species that would turn passenger ships into weapons and fight with the fury of parents protecting their young. The hologram continued to show the battle, and the council members watched in stunned silence. What they were seeing challenged everything they thought they knew about combat in space. The humans weren't fighting like any species they had seen before. A young human man stepped forward from the delegation. He had sandy brown hair and looked barely 20 years old. His left eye was covered with a medical patch, and burn scars ran down that side of his face. I'm Lieutenant Danny Williams, he said. I was a cadet pilot on the training ship UES Learning Star. I want to tell you about the moment everything changed in the battle. He touched his own wrist device, and the hologram zoomed in on a particular section of the battle. It showed a small group of escape pods floating in space, each one barely big enough for a few people. Those pods held our children, Danny said, his voice catching slightly. When the Kraxen broke through our defensive line, the families on the colony ship, U.S. New Horizons put all the children in escape pods and launched them toward our carrier ships. The parents stayed behind to buy time. The council watched as the massive colony ship, already damaged and venting atmosphere, turned toward the approaching Kraxen vessels. It began to accelerate. They knew they were going to die, Danny continued. But they also knew that every second they bought meant their children had a better chance of reaching safety. The ship's captain, Paul Harper, was a 40-year-old botanist. His wife, Jane, was the ship's doctor. Their twin daughters were in those pods. The colony ship in the hologram continued to accelerate, even as Kraxen weapons tore into it. It was coming apart, huge chunks of metal spinning off into space, but still it flew forward. Then it hit the lead Kraxen destroyer. The explosion was massive, taking out 3 enemy ships. But the Kraxen weren't giving up on those escape pods. Ryan Cooper took over the story. They sent fighters after them. That's when something remarkable happened. The hologram showed the escape pods more clearly now. In one of them, a small figure could be seen. A child, pressing against the transparent aluminum window. Her name was Lucy Walker, Lisa said softly. 10 years old. Her parents were on the UES Democracy fighting for their lives. She managed to access the pod's communication system. The speakers came to life again, and this time it was a child's voice, scared but determined. This is Lucy Walker. I'm 10 years old and I'm from Earth. There are 43 kids in these pods. The youngest is my friend Tommy, he's only 4. If you hurt us, our parents will never forgive you. They'll never stop hunting you. Please, we just wanted to meet new friends. In space, we brought cookies to share. Several council members made sounds of distress. Even hardened diplomats weren't prepared for the voice of a frightened child in the middle of a battle. The Kraxan response was to increase speed toward the pods, Ryan said grimly. They broadcast that the children would bring good prices in, the slave markets. The human delegation stood straighter and Lisa's hands clenched into fists. That was when we stopped trying to disable their ships, she said. That was when we decided that every single Kraxan in that fleet had to die. Counselor, Vexmar leaned forward. You speak of killing 300 ships worth of beings as if it were a simple decision. Simple? Lisa turned to face him directly. No, Counselor, it was the hardest and easiest decision of my life. Hard because we came here to be peaceful explorers. Easy because they threatened our children. Any parent here would understand. She gestured to the hologram. Watch what happened next. The battle changed. Where before the human ships had been defensive, trying to protect and escape, now they became something else. They became predators. The UES Democracy was our medical ship, explained a woman from the delegation stepping forward. She was older, maybe 50, with gray streaking through her brown hair. I'm Dr. Helen Martinez. I was on board during the battle. When the Kraxan boarded us, they expected to find easy prey. Doctors, nurses, patients. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was steel. They found something else. Every scalpel became a knife. Every laser surgical tool became a weapon. We pumped anesthetic gas through the ventilation system in reverse, keeping our areas clear while flooding theirs. When they broke into the pediatric ward, they found 30 medical staff ready to die before letting them pass. The hologram showed the Democracy, its hull breached in multiple places, somehow still fighting. Kraxan boarding craft were attached to it like parasites, but one by one, they went dark. Not a single Kraxan who boarded our ship survived, Helen said simply. We took their weapons, their armor, everything useful. Then we vented their bodies into space and used their own boarding craft as missiles against their fleet. Ambassador. Threen's scales had turned completely purple now, pure fear. This is not possible. The Kraxan are trained warriors. You were civilians. We were parents, corrected Captain Jake Morrison, speaking for the first time since entering the chamber. There's a difference between a warrior and a parent protecting their child. A warrior fights for glory or conquest. A parent fights with the desperation of someone with everything to lose. He stepped forward, and the council could see he carried himself like a soldier despite his captain's uniform. I was in Earth's military before I became a colony ship captain, he said. I thought I knew what combat was. But watching teachers turn classroom supplies into bombs, seeing accountants calculate ramming trajectories, witnessing teenagers fly suicide runs to protect those escape pods, I learned that every human is capable of terrible things when pushed far enough. The hologram showed more of the battle. The UES Prometheus II, an engineering vessel, vented its entire atmosphere to create a massive explosion that destroyed 8 Kraxan ships. The crew had worked in emergency suits for 6 hours afterward, repairing their ship while slowly suffocating as their air ran out. Chief Engineer Carlos Rodriguez and his team of 12 engineers, Jake said, reading from a list. They all volunteered to stay at their posts knowing they would run out of air. They wanted to make sure the ship's reactor would overload if the Kraxan tried to board. Their last message was, "Tell our families we died free." The agricultural ship UES Green Harvest had turned its terraforming equipment into chemical weapons, spraying compounds that dissolved Kraxan hull material. When its captain, Maria Gonzalez, was killed, her 15-year-old son Alex took command and flew the ship into the enemy formation. A 15-year-old boy, Lisa emphasized. He should have been in school, worried about grades and games. Instead, he died taking 17 Kraxan fighters with him. The stories continued. The education ship, UES Bright Future, full of teachers and their students, had rammed into the Kraxan supply vessel, crippling their fleet's ability to continue the fight. The entertainment ship UES Harmony, carrying musicians and artists, had used its powerful communication arrays to hack into Kraxan systems, causing chaos in their fleet coordination. Every ship, every human became a weapon, Ryan said. We learned something about ourselves that day. We learned that beneath our civilization, beneath our art and science and dreams of peace, we are still the same species that survived ice, ages, plagues, and world wars. We are still the apex predators of a death world. The hologram showed Lucy Walker's escape pod again. Kraxan fighters were closing in on it. Inside, the little girl was holding the hands of younger children, trying to keep them calm. That pod was 30 seconds from being captured, Danny Williams said, his one good eye staring at the image. I was in a damaged fighter, one engine gone, weapons depleted. I had one option left. The hologram showed his fighter suddenly accelerating directly at the Kraxan fighters approaching the pods. I aimed for their leader and set my reactor to overload, Danny said simply. I figured one cadet's life for 43 children was good math. But you survived, observed Ambassador Crickstall. Danny managed a small smile. Lucy's dad, Bill Walker, pulled me out at the last second. He'd fought his way through half the Kraxan fleet in a maintenance shuttle, to reach his daughter. He grabbed my fighter with the shuttle's repair arms just before I hit. Then he used my overloading fighter like a bomb, throwing it at the Kraxan. The explosion in the hologram was massive. When it cleared, the escape pods were safe and the Kraxan fighters were gone. High Chancellor Loomis floated in silence for a long moment, her energy form pulsing with different colors as she processed what she had heard. Finally, she spoke, her voice reaching into every mind in the chamber. You described desperate actions, but the Kraxan fleet was massive. How did you ultimately defeat them? Even with such fierce resistance, they had superior numbers and firepower. Admiral Lisa Chen nodded and changed the hologram to show a different part of the battle. This section was later in the fight. Both fleets had taken heavy damage, but the Kraxan still outnumbered the humans 3-1. You're right, Chancellor. After 4 hours of fighting, we had lost 20 ships. The Kraxan had lost 90, but they still had over 200 vessels. That's when Admiral Graxtor himself decided to enter the battle. The hologram showed a massive ship, easily the largest vessel in the entire battle. It was covered in weapons and armor, with trophy marks from hundreds of successful raids painted on its hull. This was the flagship of one of the most feared pirates in the galaxy. Graxtor broadcast a message to us, Lisa continued. She activated the recording. The voice that filled the chamber was deep and cruel, speaking in accented common trade language. Humans, you fight well for prey. I am impressed. I will make you an offer. Surrender now, and I will only take half your number as slaves. The rest may go free. You have proven yourselves worthy of this mercy. This offer expires in 1 minute. What was your response? Asked Ambassador Zelen. Jake Morrison answered this time. We asked him a question. We asked if he had children. The council members looked confused. The recording continued, with Jake's own voice. Admiral Graxtor, before we respond to your offer, answer one question. Do you have children of your own? There was a pause in the recording. Then Graxtor's voice returned, amused. I have many spawn. Why do you ask, human? Jake's recorded voice came back, cold as space itself. Because we want you to think of them when we kill you. We want you to understand what you tried to take from us, and we want the last thought in your mind to be the knowledge that your children will grow up, knowing their father was killed by the species he tried to enslave. The humans in the delegation stood straighter as the recording played their response. Several council members shifted uncomfortably at the harsh words. That made him angry, Ryan Cooper said with grim satisfaction. He ordered his entire remaining fleet to attack at once. No more trying to take us alive, he wanted us dead. The hologram showed the Kraxan fleet surging forward, weapons firing. The remaining human ships, battered and outnumbered, formed into a defensive sphere around the escape pods and the few civilian vessels that remained. This is when something extraordinary happened, Lisa said. Something that military historians will probably study for generations. Every human ship that still had communications started broadcasting on an open channel. Not military commands, not tactical data. They were saying goodbye. The chamber's speakers came to life with a mixture of human voices. Tell my son I love him. Sarah, if you survive this, know that I'm proud of you. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry I never called enough. Jessica, marry that boy. He's good for you. Tommy, be good for Grandma. I love you all. See you on the other side. The voices overlapped. Hundreds of them, men and women, young and old, all saying their farewells. Even some of the harder council members looked affected by the deeply personal messages, but then, Lisa said, and her voice grew stronger, something else started coming through those communications. The voices changed. UES Defiance, we're coming to help. Democracy here, we've got 3 cracks and weapons working now. This is the Morning Star, our engines are gone, but weapons are online. Harmony reporting, we've hacked 3 more cracks and ships. New beginning here. We're loading our last shuttle with fertilizer bombs. Every human ship that could still move, even the ones we thought were dead, started fighting again, Jake explained. Ships held together with emergency force fields. Ships with no engines using maneuvering thrusters. One ship, the UES Last Chance, was literally split in half, and both halves were still fighting. The hologram showed the incredible scene. Human ships that should have been dead were ramming, shooting, or exploding themselves against cracks and vessels. It was chaos, but it was effective chaos. The Kraxen couldn't understand it, Ryan said. They kept broadcasting questions, asking why we wouldn't just surrender, why we kept fighting when we were clearly beaten. A younger woman from the delegation who hadn't spoken yet stepped forward. She had Asian features and looked exhausted. I'm Commander Susan Lee. I was the communications officer on the Defiance. I heard all their confused messages. They couldn't understand why we wouldn't give up, so I told them. She activated another recording. Her voice came through the speakers, speaking in the trade language. You want to know why we won't surrender? I'll tell you. 10,000 years ago, our ancestors were prey animals on Earth. We were weak, slow, with no claws or fangs. Everything wanted to eat us, but we survived. We survived by being smarter, by being more stubborn, and by being willing to sacrifice everything for our pack. You threaten our pack, Kraxen. You threaten our children. So we will fight you with our ships. When those are gone, we'll fight you with debris. When that's gone, we'll fight you with our bare hands. And when we die, we'll jam our bodies into your engines to take you with us. That's why we won't surrender, because humans don't know how. The recording stopped, and the chamber was silent. That message seemed to worry them, Lisa said with grim satisfaction. But Graxtor wasn't done. He had one more card to play. The hologram showed Graxtor's massive flagship moving forward, its weapons charging. It was heading straight for the cluster of escape pods. He was going to destroy the children himself, Jake said, his hands clenching. Make us watch. Then, destroy the rest of us. But Lucy Walker wasn't done either, Danny Williams added, and despite everything, he smiled slightly. The hologram zoomed in on Lucy's escape pod. The 10-year-old girl was at the communication panel again. She broadcast on all frequencies, and her young voice filled the chamber. My name is Lucy Walker of Earth. I'm 10 years old. The big ship is coming to kill us. I'm not scared. My daddy told me that Earth people don't run from bullies. We stand up to them. So I'm standing up. If you kill us, Mr. Alien, you better kill all the humans. Because if even one survives, they'll come for you. They'll come for your friends. They'll come for your worlds. And they'll never stop. Never. That's what my teacher said happened to the last people who hurt human children. They don't exist anymore. Several council members made sounds of shock. This child, facing death, was issuing threats to one of the most feared pirates in the galaxy. Of course, Lucy didn't know if any of that was true, Lisa admitted. But she'd heard stories about Earth's history, about what happened to those who hurt children. And she was angry. Very, very angry. Graxtor's response was to laugh, Ryan said. He broadcast his amusement to everyone. The last mistake he ever made. The hologram showed what happened next. Every single human ship, even the ones that could barely move, started heading toward Graxtor's flagship, not firing, not maneuvering for position, just accelerating directly at him. We made a decision, Jake said quietly. Every captain, every crew, at the same moment. We would ram him, all of us, at the same time, even if it meant our complete destruction. But that's suicide, gasped Ambassador Threen. All of you would die. Yes, Lisa said simply, but so would he. And the children would live. That's all that mattered. The hologram showed the human ships accelerating, some of them literally, falling apart from the strain but still flying forward. The Kraxan fleet, seeing what was happening, began to panic. Some tried to shoot the human ships down. Others actually began to retreat. And then, Lisa said, Graxtor made his final mistake. He turned to run. The moment Graxtor's flagship turned to flee, everything changed. The feared pirate admiral who had terrorized the outer territories for 50 years was running from a battered fleet of human civilians. His own fleet saw it happen. Fear is contagious, Admiral Lisa Chen explained to the silent council chamber. When the other Kraxans saw their legendary leader running from us, they broke. Their formation fell apart. Some tried to follow Graxtor, others tried to continue the attack, and some just froze in confusion. The hologram showed the chaos. Kraxan ships collided with each other in their panic. Some fired on their own vessels by accident. The organized fleet became a mob. We didn't let up, Jake Morrison said. We pressed the attack. The UES Defiance caught Graxtor's flagship just as it was trying to enter hyperspace. Our weapons were mostly gone, so we did the only thing we could. The hologram showed the Defiance, scarred and broken, ramming into the flagship's engines. The explosion was massive, crippling the larger ship. I personally led the boarding party, Jake continued. 30 humans with salvaged Kraxan weapons against a crew of 300. But they were terrified. They'd heard Lucy's message. They'd seen us refuse to surrender even when facing certain death. Some of them actually surrendered to us. They surrendered to the species they'd tried to enslave. Ryan Cooper took over. The battle lasted 3 more hours. We hunted down every Kraxan ship that tried to escape. We couldn't let them get away, to warn others or come back with reinforcements. You killed them all? Counselor Vexmar asked, his forearms gesturing in disbelief. Every single one? Every ship, Lisa confirmed. We disabled their communications first so they couldn't call for help. Then we gave each ship the same choice they gave us: surrender or die. Most chose to fight. They chose wrong. The human delegation stood in silence for a moment, remembering. When it was over, Lisa continued, we had lost 31 ships and over 8,000 souls, men, women, and children. But we had destroyed 312 Kraxan vessels and prevented them from ever taking slaves again. High Chancellor Loomis spoke carefully. And the Kraxan survivors? The ones who surrendered? The humans exchanged glances. Lisa answered, we put them in escape pods with emergency beacons. Someone would find them eventually. We're not monsters, Chancellor. We don't kill those who surrender, but we made sure they understood something first. What did you make them understand? Asked Ambassador Crixtall. That humans are not prey, Jake said firmly. We painted it on their pods in their own language. We made them memorize a message to deliver to their leadership. The message was simple. Earth's children are not for sale. Any who try to take them will face the same fate as Graxtor's fleet. The chamber fell silent again. The implications were staggering. A civilian fleet had destroyed one of the most powerful pirate forces in the galaxy. And they'd done it not with superior technology or numbers, but with sheer determination and the willingness to sacrifice everything. Ambassador Zelen finally spoke. You come to us with blood-stained ships and tales of violence, yet you seek membership in a peaceful alliance. How do we reconcile this? Lisa stepped forward. With respect, Ambassador, we came to you in peace. We brought gifts, art, music, and hope for friendship. We brought our children to show our trust. It was not our choice to arrive covered in blood. But when forced to choose between slavery and violence, we chose violence. When forced to choose between our children's freedom and our own lives, we chose their freedom. She paused, looking around the chamber. You ask how we can be peaceful after what we've done. I ask you, what would you have done? If it were your children in those escape pods, your families being hunted by slavers, what would you have done? Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The truth was, most of their species would have surrendered. It was the logical choice, the choice that meant survival. Dr. Helen Martinez spoke up. On Earth, we have a phrase, if you want peace, prepare for war. It sounds contradictory, but history has taught us its truth. We are peaceful because we understand the cost of war. We seek friendship because we know the pain of conflict. We come to you bloodied but not broken, asking to add our strength to your alliance. Consider this, Ryan Cooper added. We were civilians, teachers, doctors, engineers, artists. If we were willing to do this to protect our own, imagine what we would do to protect our allies. Imagine what we would do to protect your children. That made several council members sit up straighter. The galaxy was dangerous. Pirates like the Kraxen were a constant threat. Most species just paid them off or avoided them. But these humans had fought them and won. There's something else, Lisa said. Something important you need to understand about humans. We could have hidden after the battle. We could have returned to Earth, built warships, become conquerors ourselves. Who would stop us? We just proved we could defeat a force 6 times our size. She let that sink in before continuing. But we didn't. We came here, as planned. We came, seeking peace, seeking friendship, seeking to join your community. Because that's who we want to be. We want to be explorers, not warriors. We want to be friends, not conquerors. But we will be warriors if we must. We will be terrifying if our families are threatened. That's the choice we offer you. Humans as friends, or humans as strangers. But either way, we're here now. The galaxy must deal with us. High Chancellor Loomis floated higher, addressing the entire council. We must vote. The humans have presented themselves, their story, and their request. Who will speak first? To everyone's surprise, it was Councillor Vexmar, who stood. The 4-armed Thraxian who had been so dismissive at the beginning looked different now. I have served on this council for 200 years, he began. I have seen many species join our alliance. They come with pretty ships and prettier words. They speak of peace and cooperation, and when danger comes, they hide behind others, or pay off their enemies. He turned to look at the human delegation. These humans come to us in blood-stained ships. They tell us tales of violence and death. They show us that they are capable of terrible things, and that is exactly why we need them. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. Vexmar continued over the noise. The galaxy is not a safe place. We pretend it is, here in our beautiful station. But we all know the truth. Pirates raid our shipping. Slavers take our people. And we do nothing because we are civilized, we are peaceful, we are weak. He pointed at the humans with one of his 4 arms. These humans are not weak. They are peaceful by choice, not by nature. They are civilized because they choose to be, not because they have to be. When the Kraxen come for our ships, we surrender or flee. When they came for human ships, the humans destroyed them. All of them. Ambassador Crixtel stood next, her wings shimmering. I was frightened when I first saw your ships. I was more frightened when I heard your story. But now I understand. You didn't come here to threaten us. You came here bloodied and broken to show us who you really are. No lies, no pretense, just truth. She looked around at her fellow council members. How many of us would have the courage to appear before this council showing our worst moment? How many of us would admit to violence even in defense of our children? The humans could have hidden their battle, repaired their ships, pretended it never happened. Instead, they showed us everything. That takes a courage we should respect. One by one, other council members stood to speak. Some expressed concern about human violence, others pointed out that the humans had been attacked first. The debate went on for an hour, sometimes heated, sometimes thoughtful. Finally, High Chancellor Loomis called for the vote. All in favor of accepting humanity into the Galactic Council? Lights began to appear above the council members' seats. The sign of a yes vote. One by one they lit up. Even those who had expressed concerns voted yes. Even Vexmar's light shone bright. When the count was finished, it was unanimous. By unanimous vote, Loomis announced, "Humanity is welcomed into the Galactic Council. May your presence make us all stronger." The human delegation didn't cheer. They didn't celebrate. They simply stood at attention and saluted, not the council, but their ships visible through the windows. "They're dead." "Thank you," Lisa said simply. "We accept this honor on behalf of those who can't be here, on behalf of the 8,000 who died to get us here. We promise to be worthy of their sacrifice." As the formal ceremony concluded and the council members began to disperse, many approached the humans individually. Some offered condolences for their losses. Others asked quiet questions about human military tactics. A few asked if humans would be willing to help protect their shipping lanes. Ambassador Krixtal approached Lisa. "Admiral, may I ask you something privately?" Lisa nodded. "Your ships? Will you repair them? Make them beautiful again?" Lisa looked out at the scarred vessels. "We'll repair them enough to be functional, but we won't erase the scars. They're reminders, for us and for anyone else who might think humans are easy prey." Later, as the human delegation prepared to leave, High Chancellor Loomis floated over to them. "I have lived for 1,000 years," she said. "I have seen many things, but I have never seen anything like what you showed us today. You terrify me, humans. But I think that's exactly what this council needs. We've been comfortable for too long.